Hello, CS111 students. This is the problem set video for problem set 2, task 3, modular monsters. And this is a task in which you will be making different pieces of monsters and then putting them together to make a monster. So I hope it's a little bit of fun. It's based on sort of those mix and match toys where you can sort of snap things together or slide them together somehow and build something. And this task is a turtle-based drawing task. You have the option of doing either this task, task 3, or task 4, which is on music. And so you have a choice between using turtle graphics like we did in the last problem set, or doing something new and using audio instead. So your goal in this task is to write functions that use turtle graphics to draw monster pieces. We'll have tails, bodies, and heads. And then we've provided you with some pieces already, and you can mix those together with your own pieces to build a monster. The goal of this task in terms of what you're supposed to get out of it and learn is really about both using custom functions with turtle graphics, just in general, and also specifically modularity, this idea that we want to have different pieces of code that are broken up into their own little thing, and then they can be placed together in different ways that don't interfere with each other too much. And you'll find that using turtle graphics, we have to be careful that, for example, we always set the pen color so that if somebody else leaves the pen color with a weird color, we don't change our colors as well. And we also have to be careful about positioning, that we position ourselves in the right way or move the right amount so that when we have multiple of these little monster pieces together, they'll actually come together to create a monster body instead of creating some horrible messed up monster that's spread all over the world. So the problem set has a picture at the top that shows you what the monster might look like by combining multiple pieces. But you're free to make your own pieces that look like whatever you want. There's no restriction on what it has to look like other than certain things about where the turtle must move. We have provided two starter files, greenmonster.py and yellowmonster.py. In the picture, there's also some orange pieces that are produced by the solution code. And so you're going to produce your own monster pieces, and then you're actually free to mix up the pieces almost however you want. So there's two subtasks. The first is to define your monster pieces. So you're going to define three functions: monster tail, monster body, and monster head. These three functions do not take any parameters. And to ensure that the pieces can fit together with each other and with the pieces we provided you, we have certain rules. So when drawing the tail, the turtle is going to start off facing east. And generally speaking, we think of that position as like the rear hip of the monster. So it's like at the top of the monster, at the back of the monster's butt, and it's facing sort of to the east, which is where the turtle is facing by default when you just start up Turtle Graphics. And so in order to make your tail fit with other stuff, you should probably draw the tail by first like turning around, right? So that the tail sticks out to the west. Now, this is not required. We don't actually check what you draw. But if you don't do this, then your tail might overlap underneath the body or something, and you won't be able to see it. So the first thing you should probably do in your tail is turn around. But by the time the tail is done, the turtle must be in the same position that it started in. And we call this an invariant, as in it doesn't change. Because that's what it means, is that when the function starts, the turtle is in a certain position, and when the function ends, the turtle is right back there, and we'll be checking for that. Another just piece of info about how to draw these tails is that typically the monster body should extend 40 to 50 units south of where the cursor starts. So you don't have to draw the tail right on the cursor. You can sort of move down a bit, which our green tail, for example, does. So another note here, you're not allowed to use any absolute position or orientation functions like set position, teleport, set heading, or realign while drawing your monster tail. Because if you did that, and then somebody was like, oh, I want to draw a monster over here, those absolute position functions would mess up the monster tail. All right, so how about the monster body? Well, a similar kind of deal. After drawing the tail, which is going to put the cursor right back where it started, we're kind of at the butt of the monster, right? At the top, at the west end of the monster. And again, you can draw whatever you want, but to sort of maximize things syncing up with each other, whatever you draw should roughly be based on a 100 by 50 rectangle. If you look at the green monster, it just literally draws a rectangle that's exactly that big. But you can draw something bigger than that if you want, just it'll overlap the tail a little bit and maybe the head will overlap it. If you look at our orange monster, we actually draw a circle that does sort of go outside of those bounds. So it's not an exact requirement. But the requirement is that the overall movement of the turtle during this drawing of the body should be a net of 100 units forward exactly. So if the turtle's in one place and I call monster body, then at the end, the turtle must be exactly 100 units forward from where it started. And that means forward from where it started, not like 100 units east, right? Because maybe it started in a different orientation or in a different position on the canvas. Wherever it started, go 100 units forward, same orientation, that's where it needs to end up, and we'll be checking that. So if you do this, then you can call monster tail, which puts the turtle back where it started, then immediately call monster body, and it'll draw and sort of connect up with the tail, right? And not only will it connect up with the tail, but it'll set up for the head. And so that's the last function here is monster head. When you draw the monster head, the cursor is going to be positioned at the northeast corner of the body, assuming that your body code is good, right? And you can look at the green body and the yellow body because they both do that. And so you should draw generally stuff that's to the east, so in front of where the cursor is positioned. Because again, the body is going to be over to the west and the tail is going to be even further to the west of that. Or if you're rotated, some other thing, but I'm sort of assuming a standard orientation for these descriptions. So we'll draw the head last, so it gets to overlap the body if it wants. And just like the other two functions, just like the tail, monster head has to put the turtle back where it started. Right? So it starts in one place, you draw the head, whatever, you move around a lot in that drawing, but by the end, you're back where you started. And that's really the hardest part of this assignment, is figuring out how to do that. So there's a few other requirements that apply to all three of these functions. Number one, you have to use the pen size function to set the pen width. Don't assume that it will be 1, which is the default, when you start, because some other monster part might have set it bigger or smaller. We don't know. For the same reason, you have to use pen color and fill color, or just the color function, to set both the pen and fill colors. Because again, who knows which monster was drawn previously and what color it used. Even if you don't use a filled shape, you still have to set the fill color. It's just a requirement. Your code must leave the pen in the down position at the end of the function. So remember, we can use pen up to sort of retract the pen into the turtle and cease drawing as the turtle moves, and pen down to start drawing again. You have to leave the pen in the down position so that whoever draws next can safely say, like, I don't need to put the pen down, it must already be in the down position. Right? That's again going back to this modularity. We're going to clean up after ourselves so we don't have any unintended consequences for the next person. And finally, your drawing code has to call at least 2 different turtle or turtle beads drawing commands from a list that's specified in the assignment. And you can go look at it on the assignment page there. I'm not going to read through it. But the requirements are pretty basic. You don't have to draw that much, just have to use at least 2 of those different commands. We encourage you to get a little creative. Now, in addition to using 2 of those commands, your monster body function, not the tail or the head, but the body at least, must call a custom function. And this custom function, it's up to you, but it has to call one of those drawing commands from the list above. So you get to define whatever kind of custom function you want. If you look at the examples we provided, the yellow monster uses it for a fin, and the green monster uses it to help draw the wings. So you can use it for some kind of limb or something, but has to be a custom function thrown in there. It can be named whatever you want, can have whatever parameters or return values you like, but it has to draw something as well, that custom function. So we have provided a diagram in the problem set description of how the pieces are supposed to fit together that basically visually lays out what I just described. That the tail is sort of facing backwards from where the turtle starts and puts the turtle in the same position at the end, that the body moves the turtle 100 units forward, and that the head puts the turtle back where it starts, and that if we do all these things, then you can just call tail, body, head in that order and draw the whole monster. So, subtask B is the monster mash, is to put these things together. So you're going to define a function called monster mash, takes no parameters, and it has to obey the following rules. It has to draw at least one tail, at least two bodies, and at least one head. And this can be the yellow tail, the green body, your own head. You could draw multiple heads, multiple tails, but the minimum is tail, two bodies, and a head. And you can move however you want. There's no requirement that the turtle ends up back where it started. You could draw the two bodies on top of each other if you wanted. But the easiest way to do it is just tail, body, body, head, like the example monster shown at the top of the problem set description. That's drawn using two tails, then three different bodies that all sort of stack up end to end, and then one head plus a little bit of movement, and then another head. So it has to draw at least two different bodies, and those have to be different bodies. You can't use the same body twice. You can't have two green bodies or two of your own bodies. And then there's another requirement. It must not call pen size or pen color. So if you have issues with the coloring bleeding over from one part to the next, you should fix that by calling pen size and pen color in the monster part functions themselves. You're not allowed to call those in the monster mash function. So that is all you have to do for monster mash. Again, it's fairly open-ended. Just put your things together. And that's it for me on this task.